Hello everybody. We now start with a new chapter in bio, that is chapter number 13, Skin, the Jack of all trades. What's the meaning of Jack of all trades? Yeah, one which can do multiple jobs. Okay, something which can do multiple jobs is called as the Jack of all trades. So if somebody is good in studies and also sports and also singing, and so we will call him as a Jack of all trades. So similarly, skin is in our body is supposed to be as the Jack of all trades. So this is because the number of functions what the skin can do is so vast. Okay, it is in all the different pathways. Okay, not like liver or something जहाँ पे it has got many functions, but most of the functions are connected to the digestion and nutrition and all. But here different kind of functions are there in case of skin. That's why we call skin as the Jack of all trades. So let's see about the chapter. The skin is not just a simple covering of our body. It is one of the most active organs of the body, functioning in numerous ways. Many of our recognizing features like comes from the complexion, hair patterns, etc. The most apparent feature of an aged person, a healthy youth, or a tender infant is the texture of the skin, whether loose and wrinkled or tight and smooth. You will learn several interesting things about the skin, the Jack of all trades, as named by some, while some others would even call it master of many tasks. Okay, either you can be a Jack of all trades, means you may not be good in all the things, but you know how to do those things. But if you're master of many tasks, means you are able to do that thing, many things very well. So that is master of many tasks. It belongs to integumentary system of our body. The skin is the largest organ of our body. It accounts to 15% of adult human total body weight. Primarily, the skin is an almost impermeable barrier. So yeah, it is the integument, the outermost part of the body, and it is the largest organ because skin is the largest organ and which constitutes around 15% of the body weight. Our skin constitutes the 15% of the body weight, and mainly the skin is the barrier. Okay, it's impregnable; you cannot penetrate through it so easily, and that's why it is the barrier for the body. So, what is skin? The skin is the outermost covering the body. It is stretched all over in the form of layer. There are many structures and glands derived from the skin. So let's see the different functions of the skin. The skin or the integument serves a number of important functions as follows. So let's see one by one. First one is protection. So the foremost is the protection. The main important function is protection. Now in case of protection, you can see the protection can be of different kinds. Like for example over here, protection is the primary function of the skin. It affords protection in 4 different ways. First, it protects the underlying tissue from mechanical shocks. Yes, the first thing is that it is protecting the underlying tissues from any mechanical shocks. That's the reason if I'm getting banging over here, it is not hurting me directly because there is a protection given by the skin. It holds the body fluid inside and prevents excessive loss of water by evaporation. So another thing is that it is of layer which is not allowing too much of evaporation to take place on the body, and that's why it holds the body fluid inside and does not allow too much of evaporation. Third, it prevents harmful substances or diseases causing germs from entering our body. So the skin is acting as an impermeable membrane over here, which is not allowing the germs or the diseases or the disease causing germs and bacteria to enter into our body, because it is protecting us, the skin is protecting us from those germs. It protects the body against excessive ultraviolet light, which is potentially very harmful. So, and the last thing what it does is that The sun rays has got a certain part of ultraviolet, that is UV light in it, and this UV light can cause cancer to the body. So the skin is the one which is protecting our body from the UV rays. So UV light is being protected by the skin. So that was about the protection part. So the protection part is of these 4 types. The next function of the skin is sensation. So the next is sensation. The feeling of touch, pain, okay, all this can be seen from the, can be felt by the skin. So our skin serves as a sense organ for touch, pain, pressure, heat, etc. Third is temperature regulation. So next one is temperature regulation. So the skin prevents loss of heat in cold weather and facilitates loss of heat in hot weather. You will learn about the actual mechanism of temperature regulation later in this chapter. So that we'll just see that how it is called as vasoconstriction and vasodilation. We'll just see that part of that later. That is temperature regulation. The fourth one is storage of food. We very well know the adipose tissue. So that is the one which is storing the fat cells. So storage of food is also there in case of the skin. So the skin stores reserve food in the form of layers of fat contained in special cells. Fifth is excretion. So this is again excretion. So the sweat is giving out certain amount of nitrogenous waste with it, or the salts, excess of salts. So that is nothing but the excretion. So the skin assists in the process of excretion through sweating of water, salts, and to a very limited extent urea. Since sweating from the skin occurs mainly for temperature regulation, we cannot really consider the skin as an excretory organ. So as I said, we cannot consider it as an excretory organ altogether, because sweating actually is taking place so as to maintain our body temperature. But still, because when sweating takes place, certain amount of salts and the nitrogenous waste are removed from the body. That's why we can consider that excretion is one of the function of the skin. The sixth is synthesis of vitamin D. So vitamin D is going to be synthesized by the skin. So the skin can synthesize vitamin D when exposed to sunlight. This is a minor function and its mechanism is not yet fully understood. In fact, too much sunshine may cause tanning and other ill effects, including even skin cancer. So, of course, it is not necessary that we should be always in the sun, because the vitamin D is going to be synthesized only in a particular way the sunlight reaches our body. If it is but well in the noon and directly heat of the sun directly, then no vitamin D is synthesized. It's only in a certain particular timings and the way the angle at which the sun is reaching our body, only then this particular vitamin D is synthesized. It is not completely studied much, so it is unknown yet, but yes, it is going to synthesize vitamin D for sure from the sunlight. And finally is the seventh part, that is the grip. The grip what we get is I'm able to hold this, and when you are trying to pull it, it is not so easily possible. That is because the grip which I am going to get over here with this particular ridges and grooves over here are causing the grip. So have you noticed that a prolonged exposure to water, the skin of your fingertips wrinkle or pucker up. Puckered skin gives a better grip in slippery and wet environment. So that's also one thing, that when you are completely wet also, at that time also you don't slip so easily, because the feet, they are going to just become like wrinkled over there, so that they can give you a better and that's the reason, even while you are going to turn some pages, what you do is you moisten your hand and then you turn the pages, because it gives you more grip. So that gripping is something which is there as the function of the skin. So these are the 7 functions of the skin, and you can see the main important part over here is that all the functions are varied in nature. They are not connected to each other. That's the beauty of the skin, and that's why it is called as the jack of all trades. You can see one is protection, the next is sensation, okay, the feeling of sense organs, temperature regulation, storage of food, excretion, vitamin D synthesis, and grip. So these are the 7 very important functions of the skin, which gives it the name the jack of all trades. Now we move forward to the structure of the skin. So the principal component of the human mammalian skin are as follows. So the skin is divided into 2 parts, the skin proper and the derivatives of the skin. The skin proper is, so let's see that. So the skin is going to be divided into 2 categories. One is the skin proper. I just write proper, and the other one are the derivatives. The skin proper consists of 2 parts, that is the epidermis and the dermis. Okay, the epidermis and the dermis form the skin proper, and the derivatives are many in number. So first we can go by, first is the nails, next is the hair, then the mammary glands, okay, mammary glands, the sweat glands and the sebaceous glands. Sweat glands, and finally the sebaceous glands. So these are the different parts of the skin proper and the skin derivatives. The proper consists of the 2 parts, epidermis and the dermis, where the derivatives are the nails, hair, mammary glands, the sweat glands, and the sebaceous glands. So let's see one by one that complete thing over here. I think what you need to do is also go through the figure which is given over here. So when we are discussing this thing, it is better that you have the figure in front of you, which will make it very easy for you to understand. Because drawing a figure of this particular thing over here will be slightly difficult. So we can always refer to the textbook over here right now. So first is the skin proper. Microscopically, the skin proper is composed of 2 layers, the outer epidermis and the inner dermis. So the outermost layer of the skin is the epidermis, and the one which is inner than is the dermis. Epidermis. The epidermis is the outer thinner part of the skin. It is formed of stratified epithelium piled up layer after layer. So the stratified, you remember the stratified tissues? That is the layer after layer. So that's why skin proper has got stratified epithelium which is layered one above the other. At places, the epidermis becomes thick and hard, as in the palms, sole, especially on the heels. Okay, you'll always find that the palms and the heels, they are very hard. So that is because the epithelium has become very hard over there, especially in the heels. It is devoid of blood cells at all places. So it doesn't have blood cells all the places. The epidermis shows 3 regions or sublayers, depth-wise: outermost conified layer, middle granular layer, and the inner Malfusion layer. So the complete epidermis has got 3 layers. The outermost, the upper part over here, is called as the conified layer or the stratum corneum, the upper part. The middle layer is called as the middle granular layer, and the third part is the Malfusion layer, which is the inner Malfusion layer. So let's see the 3 layers one by one. The conified layer, stratum corneum, just a minute. Okay. The conified layer, stratum corneum, is the outermost layer consisting of several piled up layers of flattened dead cells. So they are piled up layers of flattened dead cells. See, नीचे से ऊपर आते रहे और ऊपर आते आते they are dead, and they are dead layers of the skin on top of it. so that it helps in good protection, right? These cells are made up of fibrous structural protein called keratin, also found in nails, hair, horns, hooves, and silk. Its cells are continually worn away or shred and are replaced from beneath by those arising from the deeper Malfusion layer. The conified layer is tough and offers resistance to three things: mechanical damage, bacterial infections, and loss of water by evaporation. So you can see the three layers. So if we talk about the layers, it is this way that the layers of the skin, the outermost layer of the skin is the conified layer. Now the conified layer के नीचे यहाँ पे जो है, that is this particular layer over here, this is the Malfusion layer. This Malfusion layer may continuously the new cells are going to be developed and they are going to go upwards over here like this. So this part keeps on wearing and tangling. Even if I am rubbing this portion over here, I am removing certain amount of the conified layer, okay? And the new layers automatically come up from, because these are the flattened dead cells which are over here. So they can easily get worn out and they are replaced by the one from beneath, by the deeper Malfusion layer which are there over here. So they are going to give you three protections. One is the mechanical protection, damage के लिए, bacterial infection से protection, and finally is the loss of water by evaporation. The second is the granular layer. So the granular layer is in between over here, which is the granular layer. So in fact we can consider it this way कि इसको granular कर देते हैं और यहाँ पे Malfusion कर देते हैं. So this is the Malfusion layer over here. So this is the granular layer. Okay, and the Malfusion layer, we'll just keep it over here. So this is the Malfusion layer. This is the Malfusion layer, which will be a bit like this. And this part over here is the granular. So this is granular. This is the one which is the conified. And this one is Malfusion. This complete thing, this three thing combined together is the epidermis. Okay. So the three layers of the epidermis, they are shown over here. So this to this part, the complete this part over here, the shaded over here, this part over here is the epidermis, right? Over here, the upper part over here is the epidermis shown over here. So this part is the epidermis. The figure over here is very important, not to draw, but the labeling 100% sure. The granular layer is a very thin middle layer consisting of 2 or 3 sub-layers of flattened cells. Gradually, it gives way to outermost conified layer. So, granular layer slowly and steadily becomes the conified layers. And finally is the C part, that is the Malfusion layer or stratum malfigi, also called as germinative layer. It is the innermost region of the epidermis. Its cells can actively divide to produce new cells, which presses and shift outwards to replace the worn out cells of the outermost conified layer. So this Malfusion layer keeps on generating the cells and keep on pushing it upwards so that this can be easily removed and the wear and tear के कारण वो निकलते जाएगा और यहाँ से नए बनते जाएंगे. Coloration of the skin. In fact, the color of the skin is also due to the Malfusion layer. The color of the skin, that is the complexion of the face, is due to the pigment melanin. So the Malfusion layer contains a pigment which is called as the melanin. Now melanin is the amount of melanin present in the skin will give you the color of the skin. So melanin actually is going to be a kind of a pigment which is helping the person to protect himself from the extreme sunlight. Okay, so that's the reason normally all the people in the region of the equatorial region, they will always be dark skinned. This is because they need the protection against the sun rays, whereas the one who are in the northern hemisphere or the lower part of the southern hemisphere, they will always find that they are more normally white skin because the melanin content in the skin is less. So due to the less amount of melanin which are, so that's why they do not have the natural umbrella for the body, which of course they don't require in their locations. So coloration is due to the pigment melanin contained in the cells of the Malfusion layer. The different quantities of this pigment in different human races lead to form very light brown to dark coloration of the skin. African Negroes have genetically dark colored skin. The European light colored whitish, and most Indian have an intermediate colored wheatish skin. In fair colored people also, on continued exposure to sunlight, the face or other parts of the body may get tanned but revert to original condition when the exposure is cut down. The skin pigment acts like an umbrella to protect inner parts of the body from the harmful effects of the ultraviolet rays of the sunlight, which can cause skin cancer also. That's the main part over here, that the skin coloration is due to the melanin content, and the melanin content is actually now means because of the location where you are there. At the same time, it is genetically controlled, and that's why most you will always find the Africans, irrespective of even they are going to stay in some northern areas where it is not so hot, but still they will have the dark complexion, whereas the European will, whether he, even if in India, will be having a white coloration. Indians normally a whitish in color, and so they are intermediate in between the two. And also you can find that the melanin content is going to increase even due to exposure to the sun. So higher exposure to the sun will cause tanning of the skin, and that tanning of the skin will be because of the melanin content. So that is how the skin pigments are helping as an umbrella for the body against the harmful ultraviolet radiations from the sunlight. Now, two abnormal conditions of the same skin pigmentation. So these are two. So you must have many times seen that a person will be having some white patches on his body. So that white patches is one of the condition which is the abnormal conditions in the body due to the melanin pigment not being evenly distributed in the body, and sometimes the melanin is not at all present in the body. In that case, there is another kind of a condition. So we see these two conditions. First is Leukoderma, also called vitiligo. Skin pigmentation of melanin is lost from smaller or large patches at different regions of the body. Exact cause of the disease is not yet known. So you get some white patches in the body, and such kind of patches what you see is called as Leukoderma or vitiligo, which is small or large patches on the body. Whereas albinism is complete loss of pigmentation of the skin all over the body, including hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, and even the iris. So that is a very dangerous kind of a thing. I mean, in looks wise, it is very because he is completely white. The hair, the eyelash, even the iris, everything becomes completely white. So in such cases, that is the person is suffering from albinism. The skin of affected individual appears pinkish because of the underlying blood capillaries. Albinism is a recessive trait caused due to inheritance. An albino couple would produce all albino child. So yeah, if you are going through genetics in the next year, that is stage standard, you will come to know that if the mother and the father both are having the recessive trait of albino, then the child who may be born with albinism. The next is the lower part of the skin, and that is the dermis. So the lower part over here, this part over here is the dermis. So the dermis contains not many parts over here. So let's see what they are containing. The dermis is the inner thick layer of connective tissues made up of elastic fibers. It is tough and flexible. At certain places, the dermis in our skin is very thick, as in the palm and soles, and very thin in other places, as in the eyelids. So eyelids is very thin. The dermis contains several other structures: blood vessels, nerve fibers, sensory organs, hair follicles, sweat glands, etc. Leather obtained from the hide of the animal is actually the dermis part of the skin. So leather, what is being made up of, it is from the dermis and not the epidermis. Epidermis is removed. So the hair, but where the epidermis part is the one which is forming the leather in case of animals. The outer region of the dermis, which lies next to the epidermis, is raised into numerous small processes called papillae, which contain blood capillaries and nerve endings. The nerve endings and sense organs here are concerned with sensation of touch and pain. So the dermis is the one which is going to give you the sensation of touch and pain. You must have found many times that if some of the skin gets abraded, you will find that if some like salt or something touches over there, you feel a certain kind of a pain over there. So that is because the dermis, which is the sensory part over here, is exposed outside, and that is the one which is extremely sensitive. So because it contains all this sensory receptors present over there, so in the papilla, which is present just underneath the epidermis. The sharp sense of touch in the skin or of fingertips enable the blind to read the braille characters. There are some more sense receptors in the deeper parts which are concerned with the sensation of pressure, pain, heat, cold, etc. Fat. The layer beneath the dermis contains numerous fat cells, adipose tissue. This subcutaneous fat not only serves as a food reserve but also as a heat insulating layer as well as a shock absorber. So apart from the dermis, there is one more layer over the bottom, which is the adipose tissue, which is nothing but the storage of the fat cells. So storage of the fat is over there, and the storage of the fat not only acts as the storage of the food for the body, but also it acts as an insulating layer for the body. So that's the use of the fat or the adipose tissues. So that was about the proper skin proper, which contained the epidermis having three parts. That is the conified layer, granular layer, and the Malfusion layer. And then the dermis, which contains all the blood vessels, the nerve endings, capillaries, nerve endings, the sensation of pain and touch and all. So that is in the dermis part, and then lower than that is the adipose tissue. Now we see the derivatives of the skin. So the skin derivatives are the one which are the parts of the skin, but not actually the derivatives. Basically, the derivatives which may or may not be present in the complete body. So that's called the derivatives of the skin. I'll take it in the next video.